So, after finishing Tropical Jungle as root, we somehow meet up with the forms of E123 Omega.
This is a charming little place. Hi, long time no see.
Rouge the Bat.
Oh my god, Omega, what has happened to your voice in this game?
Situation understood. What would you like me to do?
Take this and deliver it to Shadow.
System reactivation countdown initiated. Backup power source. Spare magazine secured. Command program priority changed. New mission, Shadow support. External access no longer permitted. Confirmed.
I'm counting on you.
And now we're about to be heading back into Flame Core, where Shadow confronts with Mephiles.
So, decided to void your return ticket now, did you?
Why are you here? Did you ruin this world?
The answer's yes and no. Perhaps it's better to show you. Yes, that's you. After the world was devastated by Iblis's flames, what do you think happened? A search for the guilty. Who did this, you may ask? Humanity wasn't just jealous of your power, they feared it. They used this incident as an excuse to hunt you down. Come with me, Shadow. Let us punish this foolish world of humanity. It's only fair to give back what was intended for you. You have every right to want justice.
That's absurd. Whatever it is you want to do, you can do it alone.
You forgive humanity this folly, then?
I determine my own destiny.
Well, it looks like Mephiles' true form has been revealed, I see.
Such foolishness. Very well. Let's see if you can entertain me.
And so, the next boss battle begins. Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic the Hedgehog, or some people call it Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3, while we're still playing through Shadow Story. So, last time, we've essentially did manage to went into the third stage in Shadow Story, which appears to be Crisis City. In addition to that, the fourth stage, which appears to be Flame Core, and on top of that, we did somehow taking down Iblis Phase 2, but this time with Shadow, and finally, most notably, we did somehow manage to explore into Tropical Jungle as root, despite the fact that Shadow got distracted by the forms of well, none other than Mephiles, despite the fact that, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that, well, usually relatively speaking though, we did somehow meet up with the forms of E123 Omega, despite his voice is actually ridiculously awful. Now, for what I've heard is about the fact that technically that was potentially a female voice actor, apparently, because I did somehow manage to do a massive research on it. I'm not exactly sure what her name is though, who did the voice of E123 Omega in this game. Let me know in the comments down below of who exactly did voice Omega in this game, because I almost assumed that, unlike in Sonic Heroes, and especially with Shadow the Hedgehog, that his voice was manly and stuff like that, and robotic as ever. But what were they thinking about the this voice choice in this game? Like, I have no words. So anyway, today for this video is about the fact that, as you can tell, we have managed able to begun the next boss fight, and that's what appears to be none other than Mephiles himself. Specifically, Mephiles Phase 1, because as far as I'm aware, we'll get to more details on that specific next boss battle coming up in the future, because for now, all we have to do in this particular battle right here, pay attention to the forms that gauge on the bottom right corner, by the way, because the more you're trying to able to dish out as many of those, whatever this is supposed to be, and once your gauge is full up, you must able to activate your Chaos Power. And as a result, when you fully manage able to activate the Chaos Power, now is your chance to able to actually deal the amount of damage to Mephiles. So, pretty self-explanatory, but if you think this boss battle is done, well, as it turns out, it's not over yet. So,
Omega.
Now is designated time. I shall assist.
so that means we're now going to be able to take control of E123 Omega, so that way we can able to kick Mephiles' butt for the second time. Well, exponentially speaking though, is about the fact that obviously no matter what though, his health decides to able to fully regenerate it for the sake of able to actually play as Omega this time around. So, I think relatively speaking though, this boss battle is really easy, especially because as you can tell, that you simply able to actually just jump and mash buttons, so that's all you really have to do for this point. I'll get into more details about the forms of Omega's gameplay style until eventually later on though, just because no matter what though, this is only just the beginning when it comes to playing as E123 Omega in this game, so no matter what though, we start able to keep an eye on with the forms of Mephiles at all times, and just trying to able to ignore as many of those. Well, you can't able to actually decide able to actually destroy any of those, whatever these creatures are supposed to be. So, relatively speaking though, it's a relatively simple boss fight, especially because, as you can tell, the camera automatically locks on to Mephiles at all times. So, that's something I suppose, and it's thankfully a lot more quicker than in forms of how it does it for Mephiles Phase 2, that's for sure. And exponentially, after a few more hits, as well as the forms of that particular jump and mash buttons kind of technique, then sure enough, you kick his butt no problem. So, and yeah, that's all there is to really say when it comes to Mephiles Phase 1, even though I was expecting that he was going to try to say something else after that particular response, but it just goes like, ugh. And that's all that he has to say for this point. So, either way, and sure enough though, it's about the fact that now it's about time we can finally hit back into the forms of Soliana, because relatively speaking though, it's been a very long while since we've actually last experienced Soliana for Hub World, so this means no matter what though, it's about the fact that we might able to travel back to present day, but no matter what though, it's about the fact that we can able to actually say this for this point, I believe we're actually onto the halfway point in terms of Shadow Story already. So, yeah, no matter what though, despite the fact that we actually go and sell some pretty weird transitions when it comes to the forms of, well, it's just what this particular stupid time traveling aspect when it comes to storytelling, which again, I'll get into more details onto that eventually, so believe me.
Mephiles!
well, it looks like Mephiles has got away, so I suppose we're probably not gonna see him for the time being until eventually for later on.
It appears Mephiles is no longer here. I will assist in pursuing him.
It seems about the fact that we still ended up in the forms of being a new town portion of Soliana, as opposed to the forms of the old castle town, but I suppose it really doesn't matter, because as you can tell, we are now going to be hitting our way to the forms of the warehouse district, just like the forms of how it does it in Sonic's story, but this time we're going to be meeting up with Rouge. However though, unlike in Sonic's story, that we have to persuade the able to do with the forms of the town mission, in order to able to meet up with Knuckles, I don't think that's necessarily going to be affected on this time around in Shadow's story, because all we have to do is just basically we need to find the warehouse district and meet up with Rouge in the process. So that's our next objective we're going to be hitting on to. Now before we do with all that stuff though, let me just buy something in here quickly. Like for instance, we're able to buy ourselves the next upgrade of any sort, which appears to be Chaos Boost level 2, so exponentially we'll get a lot more stronger when it comes to Chaos Boost in mind. Well, mind you, I rarely use that specific technique as far as I'm usually concerned, because I think that's what the homing attack is for, because no matter what though, again, we should probably get into more details about the forms of specific stages until for later on, where we're going to be able to try to deal with some even more enemies later down the road, so we can expect to deal with a lot of combat involved. But either way, somehow we've met up with Rouge.
Hi. It seems like Eggman's machines are looking for you. What did you do this time?
Nothing. Their target is probably Mephiles.
What is Eggman up to? Who is Mephiles?
I'm gonna ask him directly.
Hey, wait a sec.
I can handle this alone. You keep track of Mephiles.
He finally shows up again, and then he leaves before even saying hello. Well, it seems his little trip hasn't changed him. This is Rouge, GUNHQ? Yes. Pull all available data on an item called the Scepter of Darkness for me.
Alright, so now we must head our way to the station. So, as a result, unlike in Sonic's story, that we do need to buy that specific upgrade for Sonic, which appears to be the Bounce Bracelet, in order to actually get to the station, I don't think it's necessarily going to be the thing this time around for Shadow, because obviously, if for those of you who don't know at this point, Shadow now works for Gun. So, as a result, I have no idea why they somehow managed to come up with this particular decision. I mean, it's an awfully confusing choice, but even then though, I honestly have no idea why he somehow managed to work with the Gun in the first place. So, either way, that's besides the point. So, I suppose no matter what though, is about the fact I don't think we can able to actually utilize with the forms that specific upgrades just to get to the station. Although, it wasn't until whenever we get to Silver Story, oh boy, that'll be something else entirely. So, either way, it looks like we're about to be going into Radical Train of all things, so expecting to believe about the fact that that particular stage can go by ridiculously fast. Although, something's worth noting for is about the fact that, as you can tell, we now need to follow Dr. Eggman. So because of that, do you guys even remember during the forms within the Sonic story, where basically though it's about the fact that we need to able to be fast on that specific point? Although, relatively speaking though, in Shadow's story, in the forms within Radical Train, obviously we still need to be fast after all. But here's the thing though this time around though, is that as you can tell, we now need to follow Dr. Eggman instead of rescuing Princess Elise for about 5th or 6th time or anything else like that. So no, instead, that relatively speaking though is about the fact that I don't think you need to necessarily worry about with those specific enemies, because obviously it'll just get your entire distractions, I guess. So, yeah, as you can tell, it's about the fact that in order to be able to progress, as you can tell, there's a bunch of laser gates, and you need to activate the switch, by the way, and then once the actual train decides to go to a complete stop, it's your chance to able to actually just to keep on attacking the train, and you have to do this for about twice. So, as a result, yeah, that's what I can really say about it. Whilst unlike in Sonic's story, they do need to be able to let the train get protected without even getting close to the point with the ones those dynamite boxes and stuff like that. So, yeah, generally speaking, I was about the fact that the entire premise remains kind of identically, except the fact that you do need to destroy the train as opposed to saving the train from the forms of those specific fire blocks, or those little bomb blocks as far as I'm aware. So, relatively speaking, if you are too slow, and especially noticeable if you don't keep on hitting the train too many times or something like that, I believe when the train gets away, you lose a life. So, generally speaking though, you don't want to let that happen, do you? So, either way though, for the most part though, it's about the fact that you still have to go through these specific scales you have to go through, and in addition to that, some more conveyor belts you have to go through, and in addition to that though, is just to beat some more enemies, just in case we can able to get the cage open, so that way we can able to activate the switch for. So, either way, let's activate the actual Chaos Boost, specifically level 2. Now, I believe the actual code name for this was actually called Chaos Lance. So, yeah, that's something that's worth noting for in regards to the phone's that particular name of that specific power. So, yeah, I apologize for that tongue twist in the end, folks, but that's just mainly because I was expecting to try to able to mention something in the forms of what's happening throughout today, but I have no words to say. So, and as it turns out, we're going to be going on to the next section immediately. So, yeah, it seems pretty interesting. So, as a result, no need to worry about just trying to able to keep on attacking the train for the third time. Although, exponentially speaking, though, something tells me we will able to actually bump into the last vehicle for Shadow in this game. And something tells me it's about the fact that it might actually feel a little bit more familiar. Well, for those of you who ever experienced Shadow the Hedgehog already, well, as it turns out, we need to chase down the train again, and how do we catch up to it? By simply able to actually hop onto this little motorbike, and as a result, we got able to actually just to, like, well, catch up to it, I suppose. So basically though, it's about the fact that just like the forms of most of those vehicles in this game, basically though, you can able to hold up for about 100 bullet ammo count, and as a result, yeah, I did somehow mess that up right there. But that doesn't give us up just yet, because obviously, luckily for me, that despite the fact for whatever reason, I just got stuck there. So, anyways, let's get on to another bike instead, so we can able to actually just keep on tapping the X button or the A button, depending on what version of the game you're playing, that if you press that X button twice, you can actually give yourselves a bit of a boost. So, as a result, so that way you can able to accelerate even more. So basically, in this part right here, it's about the fact that we need to destroy the train again, except the main objective this time around is to use the motorcycle. And by the way, with that hitbox right there, you have to aim at the side of the train, not at the back. Because for whatever reason, I did manage to test this out on my own time. Oh, you joking me! I was so close again to getting this rank! Ah, I should just keep some more rings, rather than keep on getting hit by whatever missiles they throw at me. Well, specifically with all these Eggman's robots. So, yeah, for whatever reason though, it's about the fact that the hit does not count on the back, because it always had to be either left or right side. So, yeah, it's definitely a little bit unclear of what you're supposed to do at first glance, but somehow we catch up with Dr. Eggman.
Wouldn't the door have been easier? So, what do you want now?
Who is Mephiles, and why are you trying to capture him?
If you want to know, you should go find him yourself. But here's a hint. It's all linked to the Soliana disaster 10 years ago.
The Solaris Project.
Indeed. When you capture Mephiles, you must bring him to me. Then I'll tell you the truth about Solaris.
Now, as far as I'm aware, the next cutscene we're going to be seeing is the exact same cutscene as we've already saw since in Sonic's story, basically.
I knew it! I knew you'd return. You had to.
You again.
This time, there will be no more interruptions! The Iblis trigger must die!
Sonic.
Ha!
So how was your little walk?
Ah!
Elise!
Ah! It's time to end this! Who? Mephiles! Why are you getting in my way?
I'm Shadow. Shadow the Hedgehog.
And you see what I mean, there aren't any changes for that specific scene, so...
Don't get in my way!
But sure enough, we were able to beat the likes of Silver the Hedgehog for the second time in Journey forms of this entire game, except now we're going to be playing as Shadow in order to able to actually beat this next boss. So, I'm pretty sure the actual battle plays out exactly the same as the forms of how it does in Sonic's story, except the noticeable difference is this time it does manage to take place in a different arena, specifically in Radical Train as opposed to Soliana, likely the forms of something to do with tables, chairs, and all that stuff. So basically, all you have to do is just wait for the audio cue when Silver just goes like, how about this, instead of like just straight up homing attack into him, because otherwise, if you accidentally homing attack onto him, basically though, he'll say this particular famous line, "It's no use," at you, and as a result, he uses psychokinesis, and it'll just try to able to toss you back. So, yeah, as a result, similar strategy as the forms of how it does it on Sonic's story. I highly recommend you're able to do a bit of a sweep kick, because otherwise, you really don't recommend doing a homing attack against with Silver, because otherwise, if you accidentally homing attack into him, obviously, Shadow just falls slower than Sonic. So, that's something worth this in mind. And I would just love to able to spam Chaos Spear right at Silver immediately, so that way he doesn't seem able to, well, you know what I'm saying. And of course, we got ourselves our glorious S rank ever since in Mephiles Phase 1 boss battle. So, at the very least, I do appreciate about it, and I think that gives us enough rings so we can able to exponentially try to able to get ourselves the final upgrade for Shadow. Because I'll admit it though right away, this is the reason why I'm going to be skipping over the majority of the town missions in Journey in Shadow story, because let's just say these missions are entirely pointless. So, and you can definitely tell what I mean if we get towards the end of Shadow story. So, and now, the cutscene you've all been waiting for.
Ah!
Chaos control!
That looks so radical when Shadow does that technique.
You!
Don't bother. With the Chaos Emerald's power, I control time and space. You can't break free.
I won't give up! It all depends on me! Can't lose! Not when I'm so close! Ah!
Chaos
Chaos control! Huh?
You induced chaos control.
I won't let anyone get in my way. I'll change the past and save the world!
Mephiles isn't trying to help you create a better future. He's trying to eliminate the past.
What? What are you talking about?
To discover what happened, it seems we must see what took place 10 years ago. Follow me if you want the truth.
An electromagnetic pulse has just been generated, injecting a decompression agent. No, the level's not dropping. A spatial meltdown is inevitable. My lord, it's too late. We've got to take shelter.
Why so loud? Why do you refuse to listen to my voice?
Father!
Elise!
Is that? Flame. It's Iblis!
And the Black Shadow is the original Mephiles.
That's Mephiles? They're escaping!
We'll have to split up. I'll pursue Mephiles.
Okay, then leave Iblis to me.
Wait. Seal it with this.
Hurry!
And so, for whatever reason, we've decided able to actually utilize the Chaos Control to able to travel through time again, except this time we're going back to the past, specifically 10 years ago. Yeah, I'll get to more gripes I have with the forms of the stupid time traveling system as the actual plot device, because this is such a missed opportunity that is. So, exponentially speaking though, we're going to go on to the forms of Aquatic base, except this time we're now going to be taking control of Shadow, and in addition to that, we're also going to be able to take control of Silver again, ever since enjoying the forms of in Kingdom Valley in Sonic's story. So, generally speaking though, it's about the fact that every once in a while, there's going to be a lot of enemies that we have to deal with right here. Not only we can able to actually deal with all these weird Iblis monster creatures that we have to take them down ever since in Flame Core alongside with the forms of Crisis City, but there's also now Mephiles dark creatures kind of types. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of combat that's going to be involved. And I have no idea why this particular motorcycle was doing in here, despite the fact that this takes place 10 years ago, right? I mean, I just have nothing else to say. So, generally speaking though, what I've noticed something is about the fact that there's quite a lot of stuff I would like to mention about in regards to the forms of what has been happening during the forms of it not only a couple of days ago, but also with the forms of the most recent events. So, for instance, today's date of course here is the 4th of March today, in some cases in 2024 today. So generally speaking though, we've only got about 18 more days to go until Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch will be releasing during that time. So we still have no idea if that game is going to be receiving the actual playable demo once that particular demo version will be available at one point. Likely also for about a week before the actual game decides to release. So it might be exponentially trying to make it happen and during at some point until next week if possible, just like the forms of how it does it on not only Yoshi's Crafted World back in 2019, but also with maybe potentially with Pikmin 4 and maybe some other games else as a matter of fact. But then again, we shall see. So either way. So yeah, still pretty excited about the forms of Princess Peach Showtime once that game decides able to come out, and I'm pretty much hyped about it, despite the fact that it's not going to be that grand compared to the forms of how it does it in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, along with Pikmin 4, and even with Super Mario Bros. Wonder. But I'm sure enough I will have it in quite a good time once that particular game decides to release. So either way, so now we're going to be able to take control of Silver for a while, because no matter what though is about the fact that exponentially speaking though, we still need able to actually just try to utilize with the psychokinesis to able to pick up objects and able to actually deal with the forms of certain enemies in the process. So again, similar to the forms of how it does it on Kingdom Valley level in Sonic Story, except the fact that it does manage to take place in 10 years ago kind of syndrome. So, now what I found out is about the fact that unlike the forms of how it does it on this fan-made project called Sonic Project 06, as far as the actual fan-made remake of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, I love the contrast about the forms of how the fact that once you enter in Shadow's version of Aquatic Base, and something tells me that could be also applied for Silver Story as well, we actually get ourselves a contrast with the forms of the black and white colors, because obviously that takes place in the past. So I have no idea why does the final version of this particular game does not include the actual different contrast when it comes to likely having black and white color scheme, where if you travel back to the past and stuff. Well, again, it's just one of those missed opportunities, I guess. It's just like the forms of how it does it for the actual story itself. Like, seriously, whoever thought that time traveling is such a good idea for the actual plot device? I mean, are they expecting they did manage to watch too much of Back to the Future a lot? That's saying something. So anyway, now we've actually taken control of Shadow again, so we can able to actually just try to deal with the delayed homie attack with all the specific bubble-like objects, so we can able to make our way to this point. So, I think, fundamentally speaking now, it's about the fact that thankfully, just like in Sonic Story counterpart of Aquatic Base, it only has 2 loading times, and exponentially go by a little bit quicker than the forms of how it does it on Sonic Story sometimes, because good lord, it only lasted for about almost 10 minutes during the forms of in Sonic Story version of Aquatic Base, mainly because of you able to play as all 3 playable characters in Sonic Story, which is both Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, even though despite the fact that, well, to be speaking though, that we have to occasionally try to able to do with some more Eggman's mechs or Eggman's robots from time to time, just in case for some score bonuses that I keep on getting, in case if I want able to get that specific final upgrade for Sonic, if you already know what that is. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of enemies we have to deal with in the forms of not only in Shadow's version of this stage, but I think something tells me that could be also applied for Silver Story as well, so we might try to get used to it. So, but either way, I think, relatively speaking, we need to backtrack for a bit, so just in case, oh no, it's this part again, just like in Sonic Story, except about the fact that I don't think it's possible I can able to get the Sky Gem or anything, so I can able to skip past for that particular section, sadly. But, thankfully though, we did somehow manage to get this part okay enough, so I believe we're now on to the last section of the level, where I think, fundamentally speaking, we have to deal with even more enemies, so potentially speaking, is about the fact that I believe something tells me we're about to be going into a different route this time around. Well, we're still gonna go for this little hallway right here, just like in Sonic Story, although, whenever we get towards the end though, oh no, my rings! Oh, goodness gracious, I hate the hit detection on this sometimes. Well, exponentially speaking, it's not going to be that long to able to actually complete the level at the very least, but still. I hate with the forms of some consistencies where it comes to likely if you're about to get hit by certain enemy encounters or something, so. But either way though, and there's going to be a lot of times though, if you probably already know, there's going to be a lot of slowdown sometimes if there's like too many enemies on screen, so. Yeah, it's a bit of annoying though, especially no matter what though. Oh, there's another motorcycle here, despite the fact that it makes no sense of why that particular vehicle was doing here in the 10 years ago past kind of syndrome or something, which I know I've on about that, but honestly, the story in this game honestly kind of blows. Especially no matter what though, is about the fact that exponentially speaking though, we can able to still, oh goodness gracious me, whatever happened there? With that particular hitbox or this weird physics or momentum, but either way, let's go ahead and oh my goodness gracious me, what is going on? But at least, potentially speaking, we are pretty much almost nearly at the end, so at least we got to this point with all this particular overpowered little pole thingy that we can able to still manage to activate for. So not only we can able to get ourselves some tons of points while trying to activate this thing, which fundamentally speaking it actually kills enemies in the process automatically. So that's always a pretty helpful feature, especially no matter what though, is about the fact that we can exponentially try to get ourselves the S rank no problem. So I wasn't able to actually apply for the forms of Silver Story on this stage, but I suppose we'll most able to find out about it if we get to Silver Story during the forms of the later uploads to come. So, I mean, fundamentally speaking, though, it's about the fact that we're still on the forms within March so far. So, seriously, I can't even believe we're now on to the 3rd month already in 2024. Well, mind you, I've already bring up the forms of that particular spring picture frame up already, so I pretty much know exactly what to expect, despite the fact that the actual weather conditions is still pretty terrible. Well, that's besides the point. At least not long now until when the weather decides to get a little bit better, especially that we've almost approaching into spring season. So, either way, let's go and deal with the last bunch of enemies right here, and hopefully, though, the Ghoul Wing should appear once we're able to actually dish out as many of those enemies as we could. But then again, though, Shadows basically is like a combat-oriented gameplay, so although I will admit, though, right away, yeah, I just rarely use the actual Chaos Spear powers, because they rarely do anything for my taste. So, again, that's what the homing attack is for, especially noticeable, you can do, like, ridiculous amount of combos for that particular homing attack. So, and once again, we've got the S rank, just like in the actual boss fight against with Silver. So, it looks like we're not doing too bad for those S ranks. So, either way, with that being said, folks, I suppose we should probably end things off here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 in Shadow Story. Is that somehow we've met up with Mephiles in the past, and exponentially we can able to retrieve the Scepter of Darkness. So, yeah, I'll see you guys until on the next day. Later, fellas.